local stories. I'm Michael Miller, bringing people together and sharing the voices, events, and connections that shape our community. Thank you for joining us. I'm Michael Miller. Special guest today is Rabbi Rabbi Werebler from Chabad of Southwest Miami. Thank you very much for being here, Rabbi.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Okay. First things first. We got this thing right out here, and as I'm jingling it like this, I hear some coins in here. Tell us about this process and the history of this.
Well, it's a simple thing in our tradition, which is now needed more than ever in the world, the idea of tzedakah. Tzedakah loosely and inappropriately translated as charity. Charity seems to be saying, I'm doing somebody else a favor. Really, the giving is doing the giver the favor. It actually comes from the word tzedek, which means the right thing to do. So the tradition that the Lubavitcher Rebbe kind of made more globalized for all peoples and all walks of life is that when two people meet, a third can benefit. So I was persistent to make sure that it was the first thing we did today, is that we should all add a coin. We had everybody here in the studio. Here, could each give so that when two people meet, a third should benefit.
And I'm glad you brought up about people benefiting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the act of giving and what it can do for your soul and for the goodness of not just the local community, but the community at large and for the world. Yeah. Tell us what happens inside when you give.
You know what? I was just with that question. I was just inspired. One of my teachers was talking to his son, and his son asked him, you're always giving classes. You're giving. Don't you ever get tired? He says, when you give something, it actually becomes your own. You own it because you come with what we call an emes, a truth. And you can only give what you yourself have. So the more we share, it actually kind of retroactively enlivens us. The idea of taking us out of ourselves is actually we become part of a much bigger picture.
Let's talk about frequently you'll go someplace and you'll see a penny on a table.
Sure.
And so what I started doing is when I have coins and I'm in a restaurant, I'll leave at several tables, but I leave a nickel or a dime or a quarter because I want the person that sees it to think something more and different about it. Gee, it's not a penny. What does that mean? I'm going along when we went to Las Vegas and I really don't gamble. And I said, I'm going to get $20 worth of nickels. And when I was giving the machine the nickels, and then I won 10 cents, my inside, it didn't know it was just 10 cents. But what happened? My heart rate went up. I got all excited, and I was laughing. But to be able to receive that, even though that I gave that in order to occur, we recognize there's some people are out there when they see that nickel and that quarter out there, it's more than just the standard thing. So I like doing that. And somebody saw me walking to different tables on my way out. I try to do it very subtly, and the act of giving is something that we like to do. But tell us about. In the Jewish tradition, are there some things that, other than this, the act of giving might include money, but it might include sharing other things? So tell us about that.
That's right. Traditionally, and I was just talking to your brother about this before we came on the air, Judaism is less of a tradition, rather, or a religion, more of a way of life. Because the idea of giving is, and how it was, is the idea that we're like one big family. We're on this planet together. We have, within the family, you have different groups, right? But at the same time, we're all, like from Noah, we're all in the same boat. So the idea that each person has something to give makes sense. If we all were the same, then we wouldn't see the interconnectedness that we all have together.
So some people think that it's a Jewish religion, but it's more than just religion, whatever that means to a lot of people. You mentioned it's a culture. So tell us about the culture of being Jewish and of the events that go on in somebody's Jewish life.
So I think, and it continues with your last question, this interconnectedness. Traditionally, it was not so much 4/5 of the Jewish faith or foundation is not in the synagogue, it's in the home. And the idea of being a family. So when people came to what they call the community, the synagogue, the shul, there's a mechanic, there's somebody who helps share good news, like at Miami Community News. There's the rabbi, he's another guy there too. And each one of them has something to share that builds the community. It's about community, it's about connection. So neither one can exist without the other, and that's really what we have both within our faith and for the world, the message
When you mentioned about sharing, and you moved to Miami, back to Miami, several years ago, and opened a bod right off of Miller Drive, all right?
Yeah.
Miller Drive, Miller Road, and 103rd Avenue. And it says Miller's Landing, I think, right outside.
Yeah.
Not related to the street. Well, probably related to the street, but certainly not to us. Why did you pick Miami?
Well, I guess this is something we've gone over, and it's always a hard one to answer because really I feel like Miami picked me. You know, if I go back, this was like you said, my third time moving to Miami, and each time for different reasons. I was in schooling, I went to further schooling elsewhere, I came back to finish the schooling here, and then we were in Chicago for like 10 years. I was working in manufacturing, and we were building community there. And like my father-in-law said, and my wife, who really make the decisions, well, my wife for sure, it was that it's like putting a circle in a square peg. We saw that the influence that we could have would be greater elsewhere. And talking to my friend Rabbi Werebler here, he says there's an area here that needs just a home for the community.
So what was like for you, I'm going to say at least 40 years old, right?
Yeah.
To say, I'm going to go start down in Miami a new career here. Right,
Yeah.
You took what was inside to here,
Yeah.
but the people at Attend, those are brand new people to you.
Yeah.
You didn't come here, but everything was laid out for you. You'll just be the next rabbi down there. No, you started this from the get-go.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
Quoting my friend Mr. Goodman, NC, no choice. It was my soul saying, "This is where you have to go." And anybody who was been part of our journey saw like this is where you're meant to be. So I don't know, on the conscious level, on a very humanistic level, it was just where my soul was leading me and our family. And the more we're here, like you said, the idea of each one giving more, I gain much more from hearing from community members. If I could just share one quick story, like a vignette that we had Shabbat Friday night, and we have community members, all different backgrounds, all different experiences. One was a school teacher for like 30 years, and she was sharing that she helped a student who was a talented singer, but their parents were not so thrilled with them choosing that way of going. And she would encourage, her and her son would encourage him to sing. And he once got up to sing, and now he became a well-known singer. So he has all these short videos on YouTube. And this is 30 years later, maybe since she's taught this student. And she said she just clicked on one random video, and the video mentioned her and her son saying, these people gave me the platform to sing when it was not being encouraged, and that's where I am today. And I was just blown away, like just to hear how somebody could touch somebody else's life in such an unplanned way, right? It's all by divine providence.
So we know when one's purpose is clear, and you're committed, that you do more and you do better. So what's your purpose here?
So the purpose is to make this world a home, and our portion of that home, our room within the home. This is I think the number one teaching from our medrash, from our tradition, is that it's not about seeking some sort of greater reward in the end. It's about making this world a home for the divine, and each one of us have a piece in that. So my piece, and my wife's, and our family is here in Southwest Miami, and it's to share acts of goodness and kindness. Within the Torah, we have our tradition, we have 613 pathways to do it, to express ourselves, to connect with each other, to connect with something higher. And for the world, there's 7 universal principles that are uniting the whole world. You know, in Bondi, they just released that the government of New South Wales said to do one mitzvah for Bondi. And this was something that the Rebbe spoke about on CNN 30 years ago, maybe more now, that each one of us can act one act of goodness and kindness. And that for each one of us is unique. You're unique like everybody else, but at the same time, it's something in a light that only you can share. And so I'm doing the same, my little part too.
Okay, on the other end of the spectrum, it's clear that people are, there's a lot of anti-Semitism that's out there. Mm-hmm. And according to the figures I saw the other day, 2.4% of the United States population is Jewish, yet 65 to 70% of the attacks on Judaism and attacks on religious events are against Jews.
Yeah.
That is unfathomable. That means that there's only 30% left. That it is spread out over all the other religions. That includes whether it's a swastika or whether it's the tearing down of a menorah light, right. Or attacks on people and then assassinating them and murdering them. So what is it like for you when you look and see how there's some people that are misled or hate and they are driven to attack a particular category of people, in this case, people that are Jewish?
So I think it goes back to the idea, and I was again talking to your brothers, we're not selling anything. We don't have an agenda. The agenda is peace and light, and that's sometimes hard to understand when our world is very transactional. In 1956, there was an attack on a school in Israel. Students, children were shot, and they wrote to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, how should we respond to this? And the first response was no response. It hurts. It's painful. So you're asking me, right, how I look at it in the world. It's hurtful. Hate is hurtful. At the same time, the Zohar says, in half of our heart, we could be heartbroken over our physical losses and temporariness and opinions and criticisms and darkness. In the other half, we could be joyful over the eternality of the soul. So the Rebbe's next response, a week later, he wrote back saying, they thought they were going to close down the school. Like, where do we go from here? He says, build more. If what just happened recently, for example, in Sydney, happened in the 50s, God forbid, I think our response might have been more like Auschwitz. We would have reclused it ourselves. But it's been set up as even a legal precedence in the United States, right? These public menorah lightings over the last, since the 70s until now. And the natural response was, they'll fight darkness with light. We're going to add more. People, the next day, on that spot in Bondi, last week I read, they put a Chabad house right there, a tent for people to come by and do an act of goodness and kindness. And this is not a new story, actually, by divine providence. These weeks all talk about the story of Joseph. I'm not to give a Bible lesson here, but it's a fascinating story which most people are mind-boggled. It sounds like it's just, every family has problems, right? But what's the idea that the brothers throw Joseph into a pit, then he's sold into slavery, he goes into jail, he has these dreams that everyone's going to be serving him, even his father. It sounds ridiculous. And at the same time, the message is a matter of perspective. Our family business was usually reclusive. Our history was, right? Take care of your own. Be in the shtetl, be in your community. That was like the brothers. They were shepherds. The father actually went to affect the world. Jacob was involved in many things in life, but he didn't change his environments. He dealt with Esav, he dealt with Lavan. Yosef says, we're going to go into the world, and like his name, actually Joseph means to add. We're going to add light. We're going to add goodness and kindness. And the previous Lubavitcher's Rebbe's name, by no coincidence, was Joseph, Yosef, to add. And when he came to America, he says, here we're going to add light. And each one of us has that light to add.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the light that Chabad offers throughout the world seems to have been grown significantly here, certainly in Miami-Dade and Broward County. What need is it fulfilling that Chabad houses all over are very active, and where are they coming from? All right, that's what we want to know.
Well, the same way you asked me how I got here, I call it neshama business, meaning we can't direct souls. I heard a great example by another great speaker this week. He says, what's the one thing you can't do in chess? You can't move somebody else's chess pieces. But we have our own chess pieces to move, which is the idea that we position ourselves in order to be and add the most light in different places throughout the world. So the example I gave, like with the menorah, for example, that's not the only one. The Lubavitcher Rebbe became, so to say, the head on the body of seeing this foresight in 1951. And from there, he promoted certain things that we already have in our faith to increase good deeds and light throughout the world. There's the menorah, there's the idea of tzedakah we spoke about already, prayer not being about requests, about connection, that we each have a connection in schools, moments of silence. So the idea is that these things were promoted and set up years over time so that the world can have access in your community to things that are already there and just bring them out. Just like you have now access to the internet to so many other things, we could access ourselves, the light within ourselves and the world to bring out.
So I've been to probably 4 different Chabads in Dade County, and most of the people that attend don't look like you. All right? Most don't have beards. All right?
Thank God.
All right.
They look like me.
So the question is, the people that attend regularly and ongoing, would they consider themselves, or does Chabad, if you will, consider them Orthodox, or they're attending an Orthodox Chabad?
So that, again, and I said this, labels are for T-shirts is the line, right? And it's not just a slogan, it's the truth. Because if you look at those platforms, Orthodox, Reform, I wouldn't even say it's a Western invention. It's an Americanized invention. The idea of a tradition and a culture and a people, where one people, one God, one community. And I think what Chabad allows us to do, and what everybody wants, connection. If you want to translate anything in Hebrew that's worth saying into English, just say connection. It's all about connections, mitzvahs, and I think what Chabad provides is, here is our tradition, which provides those connections, and it's very applicable to modern times. You connect in a different way than me, and we're not all expected to be, there's no CEO of Judaism. We're all expected to connect in our own unique ways.
And you said about connection, the Chabad of Southwest Miami offers different classes and different connections and different events. Tell us about some of those.
So one of our classes that's picked up the most momentum, I guess, is our Wednesdays Lunch and Learn, which is entitled, almost like we were just talking, Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World. And what people come out, and again, I'm not giving myself a pat on the back, but what I hear from our community members is that they see that the weekly readings is actually talking right now. It's not talking ancient times, and it's a guise and perspective into life. We have another class on Thursdays about the Tanya. The Tanya I call the psychology of the soul. A lot of us want to do the best we can. We all are doing the best we can with the tools we have. And what we need is the perspective on how to use those tools. So the Tanya, I say, is this perspective into ourselves. We're starting a class hopefully on prayer, because prayer, a lot of times people feel like, I don't understand the Hebrew, I don't understand the English, and this is supposed to be a moment of connection. I feel like the book is like so foreign from me. How am I supposed to connect?
I was at a funeral recently, and the priest, that happened to be a woman, said, we're going to have a prayer in a moment, and feel free to join us on whatever level you would like. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what I'm hearing from you. Wherever you are in this whole thing, right. It's okay.
Right.
So how does somebody know that ahead of time when they go in? They go, what if I don't do this? What if I don't think that my wife should do this and my husband should do this? How can they feel confident and free enough to be able to go and just take what works for them and be exposed to the rest and decide what's for them?
That Sefer Tanya, I think, gives, if I had to boil it down to a meme, 2-liners, what's going to make someone feel confident in life. Who you are matters infinitely, and what you do matters infinitely. You are a piece of the divine. That's your starting point. You're not at a deficit. You start with an abundance. Now, because of that, there's things I can do. So maybe for me, at my level, like you said, is to do one act of tzedakah today. Maybe it's to just leave a coin on somebody's table to recognize. Maybe it's a smile. Maybe it's the idea of coming to a Shabbat table.
I mentioned this. I forget what it was, do something kind to somebody. Yeah. And I was walking out of an office building right down the street from here, and a car pulled up in the street and stopped in the middle of the street right outside the door of this business, but it was a big sidewalk, an angle. And the woman's just parked there. And I stop, and I wonder what's going on. So an elderly guy, 80 whatever plus, not so much elderly anymore, but this guy and he's struggling to get out of the car. And struggling to take his foot out without hitting the curb, and then it was a pretty big angle. So I walked over to him, and I said, may I help you? And I put my hand out, and he was looking down, and he was stunned. Yeah. And that one moment, at 30 seconds, it was there. So here I'm now, weeks later, thinking about that. Yeah. And it was one of those NC moments, no choice moments. You have to help this guy. You know, whatever your struggles are, Michael, here's a guy that can't figure out how to get out of the car, all right? The wife, whoever, didn't want to park the car, all right? And it was the closest to the entrance. And just by doing that, it was a really feel-good moment for me. And I think that we can do those things during the day. And whatever they are, whether it's a smile or opening the door or giving of your time or sharing or telling somebody, hey, I'm proud of you, because you never know the kind of impact it'll make on that person. And then, of course, after a while, when you start doing all these good things for yourself, then you shine a little bit brighter because people can look at you and they understand that. We got 5 minutes left, Rabbi. So what would you like to tell us about Judaism or about the Chabad of Southwest Miami?
Well, now that you just shared that story that you shared, you made me think of two things, which I think is something that we could take across for all of our lives, and what I see in our Chabad house too. You share with us an experience where you help somebody, and that's the idea of the seen kindness. Every one of us in each of our days has something that we can share, and we'll see sometimes we get to see the results, but there's also so much unseen that we are accomplishing. And the greatest example is, I'm supposed to speak about Chabad, but I'm speaking about Miami Community News. You're a network, right? You broadcast things throughout the world, and a lot of that goes unseen. But you cannot, I'm sure you have, what are they called, things that give you
the algorithms
that let you know the impact on certain things. But to really see, like the story I told of the woman who helped the student is way beyond. And I think what I see at Chabad is I don't try to measure outcomes so much because they're much greater. Human relationships, the Rebbe told someone once, are not chemical, they're atomic. In a good way, right? We're creating electricity, we're creating light in the world. And so anybody that walks into our home, anybody that I meet in their homes, is an opportunity to amplify the light, as you said. And so that's what we hope we continue to do, and just be a conduit for that.
And there, speaking of light, there is something magical looking at a group of candles that are together. Mm-hmm. And if you can just be one with that candle or the group of them, it's really inspiring inside. Look at this. It's wonderful. Right. And you realize if it's just one candle, it's one thing. And all of a sudden, when you have 5 candles, it's not just 5 times 1. There's this bigger light that occurs with that.
And on that, I want to say that the idea of light, we use it sounds very metaphoric, but it's not. It's actually a real thing, right? Light is the most physical, tangible thing that is the least tangible, and that it says the soul is like a candle, or a mitzvah is like a candle, and the Torah is like light, and the soul is compared to it as also. We share one, and it continues, and it only adds.
Sometimes people say, well, there wasn't too much light. So what difference one candle make? If you don't think a little light makes a difference, try walking around your house in the middle of the night without your cell phone, with that little tiny light that can lead you that way. Rabbi Werebler, thank you very much for joining us. And we're going to look right into this camera over here. And number one, thank you for joining us. And number two, my brother Grant and I subscribe to the Disney rule, which is when you hug someone, don't stop until they do.